Hi. Before we start, I just want to make sure I mention that I have no affiliation with Synthstrom Audible, the makers of the Deluge. I'm just a customer, I'm just a guy. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know that this is sort of at the heart of my setup. I love this machine. Since buying it, most of my other gear is either collecting dust or I've sold it. This thing is amazing. But I was thinking to myself, if I were to dream big, if I were to think of what the Deluge 2 should look like to be perfect for me, what are some of the features that I could dream up? I sat down, I wrote a list, and I could think of 20 different features that I would love to see in the next generation of the Deluge. Starting with the synths and the kits. The Deluge comes fully loaded with a bunch of really good synths and kits, and you can obviously create things from scratch. What I'm missing is a button that says random, and when I press it, it generates a fully new sound from the ground up. Or, if I just want to specify a specific parameter, then I'll click that one and it can just change the effect section or the envelope or whatever it may be. I've also seen on a couple of other synths that they have Voice Synth presets and they sound like this retro futuristic artificial voice. I would love to see a preset like that in the Deluge.
Is this just fantasy?
Moving on to the recording section. The multi-sampling of the Deluge is really good. What I'm missing is a multi-sampler that makes it easy for me to record several sounds from the same instrument, from an acoustic instrument, say a piano or a Wurlitzer, feed them into a new synth preset directly on the Deluge without having to go to my computer. Similarly, if I could do this with drums, record several different samples from the same drum instrument and feed that into a kit, you would make me a very happy man. There may be some sort of software limitation here, I don't know, I'm not a very technical person, but I don't understand why I can't use an LFO to adjust the frequency of the filter when I'm recording an external audio in signal into the Deluge today. Same thing applies, I can't use an LFO to change something like the pan when I'm recording an external signal. If I want to play guitar and sort of feel like the sound is coming from the left or the right, or it's using more or less filter, that can currently not be done, and I don't understand why. Well, I should say it can be done, but I have to do it manually, and I don't want to. That's what LFOs are for. Moving on to the hardware section. I'm guessing that a lot of you will think that I'm going to say something about the screen, but I won't really. I actually really like the screen. It's very limited, but that's kind of part of the fun. What I would like to see, however, is a higher resolution grid. If that's done by adding more buttons, then so be it. Or I was thinking maybe we can add a further subdivision within the existing buttons. The buttons could be clickier. There's nothing wrong with the buttons today, but if I compare it to something like a mechanical keyboard or even the Electron Digitact, it leaves something to be desired. I want it to be sturdy and well built to the point where I feel like it will last me a lifetime, where I can hand it down to future generations, and it would make a difference. Something else that I would like to see is a replaceable battery. This thing has a really good battery, it holds its charge for a long time, but when the day comes when the cycles are starting to get shorter and I can't use it for as long, I would like to be able to change the battery myself at home. I would like to see a 9-volt output of the Deluge. That way I can pair it with external effects pedals, even when I'm not close to an electrical outlet. The built-in effects are really good, but sometimes I just want something that's a little bit different or feels a little bit different, and that would be a good solution. I would like to have velocity-sensitive buttons with Aftertouch on the Deluge. Not for all the buttons, but the ones on the side here. That way I can play chords, melodies, or simple drum beats, and it would make it a lot more organic and more of a performance as opposed to the more binary thing we have now. Next to the entire grid of the Deluge, they have these tiny little labels, and they're fine when you're in a room that's lit up, but I would like to play in poorly lit rooms or in the dark, and when that happens, I was thinking maybe they can machine out the little labels, fill them with acrylic, and make them backlit, just to make it a little bit easier to see what's going on in the dark. A lot of my playing on the Deluge gets posted on YouTube. I know for other people they upload to Instagram or other, visual platforms. And so I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have one of those little volume unit meters for the output or for the different channels, or a spectrum analyzer or an oscilloscope? Something to make the music feel a little bit more visual. I don't know if it's done via a new separate little standalone screen, or maybe it could be part of the higher resolution grid that we're dreaming of. And speaking of visuals, wouldn't it be nice to have the option to play an animation, something creative, nice looking, on the grid or on parts of the grid that are not being used by the clip view or the song view? I was also thinking that it would be nice to have a scrolling text animation every time you make a selection for a preset or a sample or an effect or a feature. It can just be very fast, very brief, but it would make it a little bit easier to know where I am navigating to. It would also be something I'm assuming that I could override if I just tapped anywhere. This might be an existing feature, but dimming the lights on the Deluge and making them go very, very low would be really nice, especially when you're playing in dark rooms. I was also thinking that changing the color schemes so they fit entire schemes instead of changing on a per track basis could be nice. So maybe you want the green and yellow color scheme, or the pink and blue, whatever it may be. Check this out. Colored lights on the outside of the Deluge. I'm thinking sort of like those TVs that have colored lights behind them and they sort of capture what's going on the screen, but on the backside. It needs to be done tastefully, it needs to be dimmable, and I want to be able to turn it all the way off if I don't want it there. But uploading things to YouTube or Instagram or showing it to friends, maybe it can pulsate with the music, just something. It would be a nice touch to make it feel part of its surroundings to a greater extent. Alright, for the effects section, I'm thinking it would be really nice to have a good compressor, maybe on a per track basis, maybe as a master effect, just something to make everything gel together a little bit more. While we're at it, add a limiter in there, it would be terrific. I would also like to see something like a tape emulator or a saturator, something that's a little bit less predictable, something that is a little bit random sometimes, just like an old tape. Maybe there's a little bit of a filter going on, maybe a little bit of chorus going on, maybe a little bit of drive going on, distort a little bit. Something like that would make it really cool to me. Okay, last one, and maybe some of you saw this one coming. Pitch correction for vocals. I think that the Deluge in its current form, and especially with all the amazing features we just went through, is a powerhouse for making good music. It's really good, but if you want to layer on personality and vocals and make the music a bit more engaging, I personally am a little bit too shy to make that happen. I sing and sometimes it's a little flat, sometimes it's a little sharp. If I could just gently nudge it in the right direction by some sort of auto-tune thing, that would make me very happy. If I then wanted to turn it all the way to the extreme end where it sounds very artificial like T-Pain, that would be a lot of fun too, but I don't think I would use it as much. But just something to make me feel a little bit more confident in my singing, so I could add vocals to the tracks that I make on the Deluge. That would make essentially any other DAW redundant for me. I would never have to look anywhere else. It's all in this future version of the Deluge. Those are all my ideas. If you had a favorite or a couple of favorites, let me know which ones in the comments. If I missed something that you would like to see, please let me know that too. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing this with your friends. An extra special thank you to my supporters on Patreon. If you work for Synthstrom Audible, thank you so much for making such an amazing music machine. It has brought me so much joy, and I can't wait to see the next iteration where you include all of my good ideas. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.